Hello. Okay. Um, we are back for our stream of the week. Actually, was looking up some definitions before I came online today. So I was kind of curious about isolation and disconnection. So that's where I want to go today and talk about how our awakening and our ascension kind of pivots between the two. And there is a slight difference between the two. I don't know if I even know what that difference is 100% yet, but hopefully I will. I do feel like I'll get there. I'll talk my way to it at the end. I'll have a little more clarity on where I want to go with it. But I'm going to start with disconnection, because it tends to be more of the beginning phases of isolation. And isolation to me is something we get into a little bit more. We can kind of start with isolation in our beginning of awakening, and then to me we move into more of a disconnection, and then we move back into feeling more isolated as we go through our ascension process. But it's kind of a self-imposed isolation. It is not, we're ousted. It's not the cancel culture of today that all of a sudden you're out. You're out, and we don't want you here anymore. Which is another way a lot of people's universes remove them, especially people who are very successful in human realities get forcefully removed from them because they would not leave on their own. So that's where cancel culture comes from. If you're not, famous in human realities, you're not gonna. It's nothing to cancel. Nobody's gonna care what you do really or what you say. But when you have some success in that realm and in those dimensions, then your universe is gonna get another way to get you out. It's not gonna be the other ways our universe gets us out later on when we're not, famous, infamous people in those realities, I guess is how you want to say it. So, disconnection. I don't know if many people are going to remember, some people will, that back in the 80s and 90s, 80s, of course, there was no email. Even mid 90s, there was no email, right? So, when you went to work, you went to work. And you got messages on a little piece of paper, and the office staff would put them in your you had those little those little rotary things. They put them in there, and you pick them up when you came in, so when I came in, I'd pick up the messages, and then you call people back. And you have these little rotary phones, not rotary, we had, the touchtone, the press ones then, but you would, you call people back. Now, the beauty of that was when you actually left work, you left work. The only way you took it home with you is if you took actually hard files home. You weren't getting emails at home. I don't think emails even came in until where I actually had emails at work till maybe 1997, 97 maybe. I remember being in a workplace that had email, where you actually could get email, but you couldn't access it at home. That was much later on. So when you left work, unless you took a hard something home with you to do, hard paper copies of files or something, you left work. You were disconnected from it. You weren't continually thinking about it because it wasn't always in your field. It might be another way to put it. You could remove yourself from it. Now, we talk a lot about this channel on disconnecting with the human realities because you have to connect with yourself, and you cannot do them both at the same time. That is why a lot of us get removed from metropolitan areas. You get removed from these bigger places where there's a lot of people, there's a lot of dense dense energy. You know, we get removed from that because we can't connect within in any way when we're around this many people. So a lot of us who start off in the bigger, busier cities where I had started off, you get removed. You know, you have to go somewhere else. You have to go somewhere else that's quieter. There's not a lot of people around. And that's where the universe is going to kaplunk you, okay? And you'll stay there. And then you end up wanting to be there more over the other places. And when you go to the other places that are a lot more dense, you can feel the suffocation almost of so many people in one place. Even if you're in your house, I mean, you know, when you're in like townhomes or condos, or I think they used to call them village. I can't remember what they call them. They're not village apartments, but villas. I think that's what they would call them, like villas. You're still right next to so many people, and you're so cramped in. And you go to other places, and you're not feeling that. So you can almost feel your field expand, and you can connect inside. Now, the more you connect with yourself, the more you strengthen your knowledge, and you start getting into your ascension process. You start being able to unlock other parts of you, your DNA, your galactic DNA, more of your soul aspects. You get to release more because you're not this kind of the beginning steps. Like your awakening is usually going to be, it's either going to be a slow awakening. Most people we have pretty fast awakenings in a sense, or which all of a sudden are jarred awake in a sense. Something traumatic will happen to us, right? And it feels like some people say that was the event. Normally it's the last straw of the event where you've had 100 events similar to that, but this was just the one you can't stand anymore. This is the one that broke the straw that broke the camel's back, you know, like this is the event. At this point, I can't anymore. And that's normally what happens. You could have a couple things happen back to back. You could have 3 or 4 things happen at one time, but it's usually that. It's usually that all of a sudden you're like, okay, this is it. I can't anymore. I just want out of the human realities. Something's going on. I want to understand more of different things besides the physical, because none of this makes sense. Why would I keep setting up these things? Why do I keep doing this stuff? So, you know, it kind of pushes you to disconnect. And like I said, if you don't do it willingly, and in the beginning, none of us really do it willingly, your universe removes you. It'll give you at-home jobs. It'll get you, you know, all of a sudden your office is going to close and want everyone to work from home. The COVID realities moved a lot of people into more of a disconnected state. Now, the issue we have nowadays, though, is human realities has set up where you can never really be disconnected anymore. All the emails go to your phone. Every social, if everyone who's on social media, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, you know, we can go through all of them. As there's zillions of them, and you know, you can never be disconnected. So what that's done is it's also created this, it's a way the human realities kind of keep us there, you know, where you can't really disconnect. Everyone has a smartphone because it's also set up realities where you can't really function in society if you don't have some kind of smartphone. You have to have the QR code to access this site. You have to pay your bill online. We don't want to send you paper bills anymore. You know, we don't want to do any of that. Everything has to be electronic. Everything has to be through your phone. Everything has to be one way or the other. But it has to be in a certain way. So disconnecting the way we used to be able to disconnect has gotten more challenging. So you're finding that people's awakenings and ascension to disconnect them has gotten a lot more, it's combating that in a sense. In a sense, now you have to remember, we created the human realities to keep us bound in a sense, to keep us unconscious, to keep us in that separated state. You know, we created it, we agreed to do it. A lot of it has to do with karma clearing, galactic clearing. So there's a reason why we set it up. There's a lot of victim energy that clears around it. The whole experience of being in your human realities, or if you're really into your galactic, you know, phases, you'll say the galactic experiment, the human experiment. It depends on what phase you're in is how you're going to say it. But as we kind of move out of it, we will notice that there's so much. It's gotten more abrupt getting us out and pushing us out. You know, COVID realities was a good reason. Natural disasters are another thing. We see an increase over the years because it knocks out communication. It knocks out, the cell phones are the first thing to get knocked out because they just are. Because they rely so much on satellites, they rely so much on the cell towers. You have any kind of natural disaster, hurricanes, earthquakes, cell phones are gone immediately. And that's been set up that way also for a reason, to where, we're kind of so connected and so kind of obsessed with one thing and not being able to disconnect, that when our universe wants to disconnect us, there's a lot of ways it can disconnect the collectives very quickly and separate everybody off. And even the things that are meant to try to unite us again, greed starts to take over in that, and then that's what to separate us off. In the beginning of COVID, people were connecting on Zoom a lot, and when the COVID reality started, people would connect on Zoom, and you could talk on Zoom for hours. There was just one person, they didn't charge you, and then now they started charging you if you want to talk for more than one person for more than 30 minutes. So, and that got a lot of people off of Zoom because all of a sudden that free connection was gone, and now they wanted everyone to pay to connect again. And people kind of got over that. So when you see how your universe is trying to disconnect people now, you see it being a lot more, I don't even want to say the word violent, but that's kind of the word. It's just more kind of shaking you loose in a sense, because we're not going willingly, and our universe is not there. Our universe is trying to get us out. Our realities have been set up to not let us go. You can't, I don't know if anyone even remembers out of office email replies, automatic replies. You don't even see them anymore because no one's ever really out of the office anymore. Even if you're in a different country, you get your emails. So when anyone tells me, oh, I didn't see your email, I was on vacation, it's like in 2024, no one's on vacation. 2024, you're nowhere where you're not getting your emails, It's just not how it works. No one's just connected like that anymore. Like the one place that might be the exception is on a cruise ship. So if your universe puts you on a cruise ship, it's definitely trying to disconnect you. And if you're putting yourself there, you're trying to disconnect yourself from everything, and that's why you're kind of putting yourself there. But very few places now you are disconnected. So we used to do that, we say, we'll be back in 3 weeks, we'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll answer you when we get back. If you have a problem, go talk to this person. And now people don't really even do that anymore because no one's really ever gone, and you can't get away from it. And it's just more, and it's also, to me, quickening the quickening people's awakenings and getting into their ascension, because they're so smothered by it that their body just eventually just can't do it anymore. It has to escape in a sense. It has to get away. It has to disconnect from all that stuff. And sometimes people will go through where they'll lose their phone or they'll break their phone. And you can see how there's kind of the realities within the realities, where human realities made these phones, but now they've gotten so expensive. If you break your phone, a lot of people can't even go out and get a new one right away because they're like $1,000 for some of these new phones. They're higher than that. So people have cracked phones, and they're trying to use their cracked phone. Even if you have the insurance for the phones, you have to mail it off, and no one wants to mail it off and wait to get a phone back. I mean, that's so many days without a phone. It sends people into complete meltdown. Especially the iterations of reality today where people are not used to anything but that. The ones of us that are used to things beyond that and remember different realities where we didn't have any of these things, I don't know if we take it a bit easier, but there's also this sense of, I made it without it. But it is also like a withdrawal. So when you do get disconnected and start disconnecting, whether you do it yourself, like I say, very few of us do, or your universe starts to do it for you, there is almost this withdrawal period you're going to go through where you think everything's happening, right? Everything's happening, or I really need to see what's going on. Everything's going on. I really need to get in there and see what's going on. But nothing's really happening. That's our illusion to really think that everything's going to happen the day, we don't have we're not connected. So you're going to go through a lot of withdrawal. So a lot of times if we do, some people have, you lose your job and all of a sudden you're not going to work anymore. So you even try to go out and create stuff for yourself to get up and get out of the house. I went through a period like this years ago, and even when you go outside, you feel, and this is kind of where the isolation starts to come in, you feel kind of, disconnection to me is the beginning. And you start to feel more isolated from the human realities. The more disconnected you get from them, the more isolated they feel. You feel like you're not part of it. You kind of flitter in the world, but you're not part of the world anymore. You're not part of the human realities. You don't get spun up by the human stuff. You don't care about the drama. You don't care about the politics. None of that stuff matters because you can see all of the game it's playing, and all how the human realities are, causing this group to go through their awakening by what's going to happen here with this situation over here. And if you're not into politics, we're going to put you over here, and you're going to be in this collective, and you're going to be agitated over here, and you're going to go through your ascension this way, or your awakening is going to start over here. So it kind of covers all the bases, on how it's going to get you out of your human realities, and how you're going to really feel like after a while you don't fit. And a lot of us, we go through that in our human realities to an extent. The big one for a lot of us is when we go to college and come back to visit our home, or come back to visit high school friends or whatever, and you don't feel like it's your home anymore. You don't feel like you belong anymore. You don't feel like you connect with anybody anymore, because your vibration has changed. Your field is recalibrated to a different frequency. And when you try to come back, you can't really go back anymore. It's that old phrase, you can't go home again. And that's because your home frequency is going to change. It's continually going to get higher. Even in our human frequencies, we change. We just didn't change enough to recreate our realities on anything other than the human template. It was an upgrade, but it was still in the human template. It's just a different level of the game in the human template, but you're still within that template. So you didn't change enough to, completely change the game, so to speak. You're just kind of in a different iteration of the same game. You're in a sequel of the same movie genre. You don't change it enough, but you can feel, your body can feel the difference, because it's so jarring when you first experience it. And we experience it a lot also through relationships in our human realities, where someone you really used to feel like the sun rose and set, with this person, and all of a sudden you don't feel that anymore. The connection has been severed in a sense. You've disconnected from it. Your frequency, it's not so much, I guess, we've disconnected. Our frequency is beyond it now. So the cord of attachment, I guess, has disconnected in a sense, and we no longer feel anything for that. The energy signature that bound us, in a sense, has been broken. We cleared it. It's left our template. So we put ourselves back with people, put ourselves back in different places. We put ourselves back even places that used to feel so big. We go in a room and it used to feel so large, because our energy field was so small. And now everything seems smaller because we're energetically larger, and everywhere we go feels like, oh, I thought this was bigger. I remember this place being a lot bigger than it is, and this is kind of small now, because that's how our human perception, in a sense, starts to process it. Things are off. Things are not kind of the same, because until we really go through a lot of parts of our ascension process, we're still very much in a human consciousness trying to process a lot of the changes going on. So you feel taller. That's another one a lot of people will say. You just feel like all of a sudden you're a lot taller when you're walking. You feel kind of disconnected from your feet, because our higher aspects start to come in. We start to embody them in, and they're kind of larger than life in a sense. So we start to take on those characteristics. We start to feel that. We start to feel a different sense of morality, that we didn't feel before. But until we can disconnect from a lot of these situations, we can't really feel that. And a lot of people try to disconnect. I see that so much. I'm going to try to disconnect. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to touch my phone people can't touch their phone while they drive, and I'm guilty of that too sometimes. I'll be trying to do something. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm just literally driving 20 minutes. Nothing is going to happen in 20 minutes. I remember some of the latter years when I was working still in an office environment, and people would bring their phones in, bring their computers in. You could be giving a talk, or we could listen to someone's speech, and people would be on their phones and wouldn't think anything of it. There was no respect. The respect for anyone, even human respect, was gone. Soul respect is something we don't even get into till we go through many iterations of our ascension process, and many realities in our ascension before we understand what soul respect is. Because it's not just human courtesy, it's beyond human courtesy. It's sometimes doing something that doesn't feel very courteous, because you're looking at the bigger picture of how it impacts your soul and how certain situations are going to impact somebody else's soul. So we go through a lot of different changes and a lot of different iterations on how we feel about things, and how we feel about how much we're going to be a part of realities and how much we want certain people in our reality, and all that shifts and changes and moves as we move. So we go through that being connected, and not, and there's always an excuse on why, people can't leave their phones. There's always a reason. Oh, I was looking at the time. Oh, I have children. That was always the big one. I have to know immediately if my children need me. We're back, like I said, the ones of us that remember back in the, earlier decades there, they would just call you on your phone in your office. Nothing had to be done right away. And human realities have made us feel so self-important that we think we're so important in our human realities, we have to know immediately so we can fix it. When I'm guarantee you, knowing early, it's not going to make any difference whatsoever. We don't have that kind of power in our human consciousness. We don't have that kind of power in our human realities. We don't have any power in our human consciousness. It holds no power. It is our disempowered state. There's nothing we're going to be able to do. Whether I know right when it happens or I know 2 hours later, not going to change shit in that reality, I'll guarantee you. Doesn't matter. Because in our human consciousness, there is no power there. We don't hold any. But we have this self-importance that we do. We have this self-importance that we can't leave a job. We can't leave anything. It all is going to fall apart the minute we walk away. These are the stories we kind of tell ourselves because we don't want to go. We don't want to disconnect. That's why so many of us are forcefully, disconnected. We're forcefully, you can even see how the realities have been set up. We're all so connected by technology. The minute technology goes offline, everything has now been weaved into it. So it's going to just create all these pockets all around the world where people have to all of a sudden be working more of a community environment with the people around them, because technology has gotten so infused that if one little thing happens, I was watching something the other day about solar activity and the sun solar activity, and how different things the sun will do, the EMTs, and if you watch the solar weather, the sun, what the sun's doing, and how much energy it's pulling toward the earth, and what it could do, and what it could do to all of the technology if it hits with a big enough solar flare or EMT. It would take everything out. It would take out cell phones. It would take out everything for, could be months or years to fix it all. But we've kind of set ourselves into that. And, this thing I was watching, it was on the Y-Files, which is really it's really a great channel if you have someone very linear and you want to look at a way to open them up to different things or open them up to different ideas. It still comes from kind of more of a human consciousness, but it's more of a conscious choice to explore different things and open up your mind and stretch people's minds. So I think it's a lot of fun in that regard. Just keep in mind, it does have there's a lot of human consciousness twisted, built in to kind of ground it back in a sense, no matter how, it's going to open up, this is something that's kind of fun and kind of weird, but it's not going to tie it to it. It's going to try to debunk it in the end. If it can, sometimes they can't debunk it in the end. But they're kind of going to debunk it with like some kind of human perception, and which is how everything can gets muddled, because our human can't comprehend it. So we can't understand it. Our human consciousness can't understand it. But they were talking about how a lot of these things had happened hundreds of years ago, where you had big solar flares, big EMTs hit the Earth, and it caused these events all over around the country. It caused these massive events all around the world. But because no one was relying on technology in I don't remember the date, 1860 or something, or whenever it was just like, oh, look at all the flashing lights in the sky. Look how bright everything is because of this solar storm. But because no one's using technology for power and water and all that stuff, it didn't affect anybody's daily life. Eventually, this little solar storm passed, and everyone thought, okay, maybe they were afraid it was Armageddon for a little while, but after it passed, everyone went back to their daily routine, because nothing was tied into the atmosphere and the solar system the way we are now. So it's kind of interesting, and you can kind of see that that's probably the way that everyone's going to get taken offline at some point, as far as technology goes. Because there is going to be a time where we'll be having to disconnect from it, and it'll probably be more of the collectives as we go. Like I said, you see it all the time in natural disasters. That's the first thing that goes off. first thing that goes offline are the phones, and are ways to communicate and to connect, because you're going to go through the disconnected stage, you're going to feel isolated from everything and everybody, and then you're going to come back to where you disconnect to connect within yourself, because you can't do both. And the more connected you get with yourself, you don't care if you're isolated from the human realities. You would rather be removed from them, and kind of you kind of are isolated, but you're okay with it, because you can't exist in those worlds anymore. You can't be really part of those realities. They're kind of you're kind of beyond them at that point, and not from a place of above or better than, just you've evolved past them, and you see the tricks and the manipulation in them, and how everyone gets pitted against one another to keep everybody separated, and everybody arguing, and everyone this and everybody that. And at the end of the day, none of it really matters. Nothing is going to really move the needle. It all does not matter. So whether you're in that I don't want to disconnect phase, whether you even remember a time when you were disconnected, and look at all the other things you had time to do, even before internet, it was like, what did we do? What were we doing all day long? You couldn't connect with now. You have seen a lot of that technology came in for a reason, for you to connect with people all across the world that had different consciousness than you, that you could connect. If someone was not in your immediate community, we could connect, and you can connect with people from all over. But it's kind of gotten bastardized, where you can't get away from it. It's like a weed that's kind of started growing, and now you can't get away from it. You can't separate yourself from it. It's now so much that it's so entwined in everything, that what started off as a way for people to explore different consciousness ideas has now turned into something totally different. And that's just kind of how that's going. So I'm gonna open up and see if I have any questions. I do not today. So, okay. I think that's probably it. I did want to, let's see if there's anything else I can kind of throw in there. But I think it's more important for us to remember that disconnection, isolation, disconnection is the human, to me, more of the human word. Isolation to me it has more of a soul feeling to me. It is a more isolation. It's more of a just being with yourself. We disconnect so we can be isolated, in a sense. We disconnect so we can be isolated with ourselves. We can be kind of on our own island for a long period of time. And when I say a long period of time, it can be years, where you are really just, the only person really in your world is you. Because if not, we depend too much on everyone else telling us what to do. We depend too much on everyone else letting us know what we should think. We depend too much on what everyone else wants us to we're too influenced. The human consciousness is very easily programmed. It's very, very easily influenced. Uses all the tactics to influence us, whether it's sex, money, fame, notoriety. It doesn't matter what it is. The money, it's going to always be a way. It's going to try to pull us back in, and pull us back in by dangling carrots that never really come to fruition, and they never really are attainable. A lot of these are not things that we ever will achieve in human realities, because the goalpost always moves. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter how much money they have. They're always trying to find something else. They're always trying to do the next thing. They're always trying to continue to move, to move everything on, to continue to go. There's never a stop point for anybody, and that's why they're exhausting. Also, they kind of will run us into the ground, and if you're still on your human template and you get to your exit strategy, and when I mean exit strategy, I mean the permanent exit strategy you get to when you get to certain ages, and your human template's done, then that's it. You're kind of ready to go, because you'd already chosen ahead of time you weren't going to go through ascension in that body, in that form. you've kind of done it all. You kind of know it's all kind of just a repeat of everything. It's like human reality is very much history repeating, history repeating, history repeating. You go through one iteration, the next iteration, now we're going to go through it again. And it does wear you out at the end, you know, and when you get to, you know, those ages where you're like, it doesn't matter anymore, you know, and because, you know, it hasn't mattered. Nothing really has moved the needle. Nothing really made you this ultimate happiness, because there was always a taint to everything that did give you the happiness when you're in those human realities. There's always something that stops it from being, oh yeah, this is exactly how I wanted it to be. So, all right, I'm going to leave it at that today. And I don't think I'm going to stream next week because I'm going to have people in the house. I have company coming. So I will catch up with everyone, I think the week after that. So right around 10:10 probably. All right.